Okay, so a warm welcome to everybody joining me today. My name's Ash Giddings, and I will be telling you about essential IBM MQ monitoring for IBM I. So just a little bit about myself. I'm a product manager at Help Systems, where I've worked for 13, 14 years. And prior to that, I have an IBM I background. So worked my way up through the system administrator or operator, as it was then termed, and through technical support roles, and then where I find myself today as product manager. So let's take a look at today's agenda. So we'll start by introducing the key elements of IBM MQ that require monitoring, and more importantly, why you should be monitoring them. Next, we'll explore the limitations of reactive manual monitoring before dissecting why exception-based notifications are really the way forward. We'll finish off by taking a look at some of the best practices for automated monitoring. And really, if you have any questions as we go through today's webinar, just use the chat feature available in your GoToMeeting dialog box. And depending on time, we'll cover them off towards the end of today's webinar. So without further ado, let's get started. So IBM MQ guarantees the delivery of messages across a wide range of applications housed on disparate operating systems. I think at the last count, there was 80 or 81 different flavors of operating systems that IBM MQ can run on. So to make this guarantee, system administrators should ensure that the underpinning infrastructure and the MQ application itself are readily available. Makes sense. Without this availability, messages could be delayed or potentially not reach their intended destination on time. Without this guarantee could be somewhat diluted. So, which MQ monitors or components should we be looking at? What needs monitoring? Well, statuses are key things, but statuses of what? Well, I like to start here at queue managers. So queue managers are part of the MQ product that provide messaging and queuing services to application programs via program calls. Via program calls. These managers have a status, and it's of paramount importance that they remain in a good state. It's absolutely critical. The possible statuses of these queue managers are inactive, QSing, and starting. And a little bit more about the statuses further we go on. Listeners are MQ processes that listen for connections to the queue manager. Their sole purpose in life, or their job, is to accept remote communications by listening and to start inbound channels. While channels are, I guess, the best described as unidirectional communications links between two queue managers. And channels are used to transfer messages between two queue managers. Depending on how you have MQ configured, you may also have MQ services defined. Typically, these are objects that allow you to control which programs are called when a queue manager is started or stopped. As these programs are your own, they can be made to call tailored routines, so that they also become absolutely vital. They become key to your operation. As a result, if you're using services, you should look at monitoring those as well. Now, there's two trains of thought in monitoring, in monitoring statuses. Some system admins, for whatever reason, like to receive a confirmation that their queue managers, the listeners, the channels, the services are in a good state. They like positive notifications. I guess this is a comfort factor, maybe a little bit old school, but if that's your bag, that's your bag. For me, I'm a strong advocate of monitoring by exception, and we'll have a look at some of the reasons why I think that's key as we go through today's session. But what else should we monitor? Queues. Each queue manager has a series of associated queues. And messages live on these queues before being distributed to their eventual destination. And so these are a key element of IBM MQ. You can really think of queues as containers for messages, really. So what should we monitor on these queues? Depth. Makes sense? Depth relates to how many messages are on the queue. So it's going to vary greatly between queues. It's going to vary greatly between applications and also environments. It's also likely to vary based on the time of day as well. There might be more messages overnight. There might be more messages at month end when more transactions tend to be processed. What else should we monitor on queues? Last put, last get. Now, monitoring these two metrics allows you to see how long it's been since a message was either retrieved or placed on a queue. Many MQ environments are extremely fluid in that messages are only resident on the queue for an extremely short period of time. If you see or detect it's been a while since the message was either placed on a queue or retrieved from a queue, it could point to a potential issue in either the before or the end-to-end journey. So last put and last get are absolutely critical again. What else should we look at? Age of messages. Similar to last put and last get, checking the length of time a message has been sitting on a queue could be an indicator that, for whatever reason, a process or an interface that's designed to process these messages may have an issue. Remember, messages are stored and retrieved on a first in, first out basis. What else in and around queues? Uncommitted messages. So these are messages that are waiting for a put or a get process. Again, worth monitoring. And lastly, in and around queues, the dead letter queue, our old favorite. If you have any messages that are unable to be delivered, for whatever reason, they're placed on the dead letter queue. As we said at the start, MQ guarantees delivery. So chances are, the reason using MQ, the content of these messages will contain something critical to your business. So it's imperative that this special queue is checked frequently for any exceptions. Now, Gartner research shows that an average of 80% of mission critical application downtime is directly caused by people or process failure. The other 20% is caused by what they class as technology failure, so environmental failure or disaster, much of which, the 20%, you can throw money at by building in some resiliency, some high availability, some disaster recovery. So let's look at this 80%, the 80% that we can control. So having worked in systems management and automation now for longer than I care to remember, these top 5 are the topics that customers normally engage with myself and help systems. These are the kind of things they're looking to tackle. Time-consuming checks. If you're spending time conducting checks, it means you're not doing something else. Often the something else will be more visible to the business, which can leave you with a bit of a dilemma as to which to do. Should you carry on doing these constant time-consuming checks or do the more important thing? Something's got to suffer. The second element is repetitive checks. Now, with the best will in the world, performing the same checks day in, day out is not great for the soul. The first couple of times you do them, it might seem like a novelty, but once they're familiar to you, I'm sure you'll be looking to offload them onto somebody else, another team, but more likely to automate them. Nothing to be gained by continuing to do these repetitive checks. Too many alerts. I've heard this message from several customers that have, funnily enough, implemented monitoring tools. I get so many alerts that I often miss important ones. I can't see the wood for the trees. I'll explain a couple of coping mechanisms in the next section. What else? Complex multi-platform environments. So very few people are comfortable on every platform. And the I is quite niche. I've found people that are comfortable on the I may not be as comfortable on other platforms. People that are comfortable on other platforms, they see the I as totally different. So I think people that are comfortable on all of these platforms shouldn't really be wasting their time conducting manual, time-consuming, repetitive tasks anyway. Out of hours demands on time. We've all been there. So this isn't just call outs or alerts you get in the evening, maybe when maybe you've done a day's work and a bit jaded and not at your best, but also manual checks that you might do first thing in the morning before you've had your caffeine intake, or checks that maybe get missed while you're rushing because you're running late. Now I've added an extra reason in here, which may look a bit odd on the face of it, but this is IBM's perceived reliability. You may think it's a strange one, but I've seen evidence firsthand that system administrators kind of ignore MQ because it's considered a extremely robust, stable application. Prior to this webinar, I spoke to several customers that I know run busy MQ production environments. We don't run those at Help System. We're a software house. So I spoke to them. Now, one customer described MQ as being mission critical, not high volume, but high value. Another said that a problem with MQ can be business affecting, as it prevents them from being able to provide online quotes, something key to their business. Somebody else said that although they're in a quiet period, they processed 18.4 million messages on a recent day. And this actually peaked at a staggering 1.3 million messages between the hours of 7 and 8 p.m. in the evening. So would you rely on reactive manual monitoring for such a key application? And just before we continue, I'm just going to run today's poll question. We have one poll question today. So let me just launch that. So today's poll question, just to gauge how you're currently monitoring IBM MQ, I'd like to ask a simple question. How do you currently monitor this key application? Do you have no monitoring in place at all? Manual monitoring? Maybe use a third-party tool to give you these inbuilt notifications. Or maybe you've written some in-house scripts that monitor the key moving parts. Or maybe you've outsourced it. Maybe your application monitoring is handled by a different team. I'll just leave that open a few more seconds. Okay, thank you very much for those that replied. Here's a quote from a data center manager that I met at an event last year. Almost 95% of the checks my team does result in positives. I don't care if everything is okay. I'm only interested in issues, or better still, warnings before issues occur. Now, I think this is quite powerful. I hadn't thought about this before. So this guy has a team of people that are doing manual checks. 95% of the time, they're checking something, everything's okay, it's a tick in a box. He doesn't care about those, he cares about this 5%. So with Halcyon, we like to turn monitoring on its head. Let me give you an example. If your team are checking the status of MQ queue managers every day, whether it's manual, repetitive monitoring, or even an automated solution, why be told about 47 queues that are active? You don't care. When really you're only interested in the 3 that are inactive, or they're stuck maybe in a starting state. It's these 3 that will impact the business. So much time is or could be wasted checking, either manually checking or reading the emails for these 47. You're only interested in these 3. Just think about exception-based notification when setting up any monitoring. I think we're all too long in the tooth now to be receiving these positive notifications. Monitoring tools are very, very advanced out there. Let's have a look at some of the best practices for automated monitoring. Short-lived conditions. So in Halcyon's MQ Manager, we've built in something called alert delay. This feature is designed to handle what we call short-lived alertable conditions. For an example, you may have a situation where where messages start to build up on a critical MQ queue, but by the time you've checked it, the issue has gone away and the backlog's reduced. It's no longer a problem. In this scenario, someone's had to receive and respond to an alert before seeing that this is no longer an issue. Alert delay acts as a buffer in between short-lived issues and real issues. So this value can be set system-wide. It can also be overridden on a rule-by-rule basis, allowing you to set how many minutes the alert should buffer for before checking again and only raise an alert at the end of that buffer period. So I describe this feature as your best friend, this alert delay feature, and it's something we added into our Mimics monitor several years ago, and it's really well received. So that's been added to MQ Monitor. Another best practice. Does one alert tell a whole story? Now, many monitoring tools, not just Halcyon, they're capable of keeping an eye on different elements of an application. Like in the case of IBM MQ, say the number of messages in a queue and the errors and errors in the log files located in the IFS. But what happens if you're not interested in a backlog unless there are errors? You don't want one or the other. You want to know when both are true. So combining multiple criteria. Or how about adding another factor? You're only interested in a backlog if there's an error in the queue and the end of day processing has yet to complete or is running. So using Halcyon's alert intelligence, you could add up to 4 different rules that span across Halcyon's rule-based products. So that includes IBM MQ Manager, using both positives and negatives to join up rules so that you only receive a single alert. So not only does this reduce the number of alerts, which is what we're ultimately looking to do, but it also improves the quality of the alerts that you do see. They're more meaningful. They mean something. You've started to join different elements together. Flex-based known workloads. So many tools I see have a totally inadequate or inflexible kind of daytime mask rules. But really, if at month end, there are always likely to be more transactions, your monitoring tool should be able to cope and flex with that flexible workload as your system peaks and troughs through busy periods. With Halcyon, we have calendars where you can set days and times up front where specific larger workloads occur. So you could maybe have one group or one set of rules that flex at month end and they're held during the normal working time. All of that can be built in. Escalation. Long gone are the days where sysadmins are sat in front of a monitoring console. The best tools are the tools that are able to escalate alerts to you. They come and find you, whether that's by gaining your attention by flashing, maybe it's an audible sound, maybe it's an email, an SMS, or even a phone call. All of this can be built into Halcyon, into a single collection of actions with predefined delays between the action steps. And again, in Halcyon, you can, at any stage, if an alert is seen by somebody and acknowledged, either from a central console, either acknowledgement via an email, an SMS, the escalation stops. So this way, the alert, remember it's a key alert, we've tied a number of rules together. It's going to tap you on the shoulder. It's going to come and find you. It's going to tap you on the shoulder wherever you are in the business. This is key, the ability to build in escalation steps. Mobile. So Apple's new screen time tracking tool went live in the summer, and I was staggered to learn that in the first week, I picked my phone up nearly 1,000 times, so close to 150 times a day. Leaving home without their phone is a no-go for many people. So why not make technology work for you and manage your whole infrastructure, so not just MQ, from the palm of your hand? So Halcyon has an enterprise console app. It's free in the App Store and the Google Play Store, where you can see, acknowledge, close alerts in near real time. It certainly beats firing up your laptop, connecting to the VPN, and responding that way. Here's a summary of what I think, of why really I think automating monitoring is a must. It doesn't take vacations. It's going to be there. It's going to be there during the summer months when the weather's nice outside. It doesn't become sick. It's going to be there 24/7. It's not going to get stuck in traffic. It's not going to have a problem with a train or a bus. And unlike humans, it revels in repetition. And I guess finally, it's not looking for a career. It's just going to work. It's going to enable you to look for your career and to do something a little bit more interesting. It just works 24/7, 365. So let's take a little look, see if we have any questions here today. I have a question here from Tony. Can Halcyon monitor MQ on other platforms? Yes, indeed. I didn't mention that. We've built some templates that provide similar breadth of monitoring across AIX and Linux. And these templates can be found in our non-IBM I solution. So these can be found in our network service suite. And I want to find a question. Can I trial the software? Sure. If you go to www.helpsystems.com/products, just select Halcyon MQ Manager, and you can take a free trial, 30-day trial. Okay, I think that settles things for today. So that just leaves me with enough time to say thank you for joining me today. I hope you find that useful, and I hope to speak to you all again sometime. Thank you. Bye-bye.